Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this beaded vertical lark's head knot bracelet, and it looks like this. So this is using the vertical lark's head knot with cord, and I've just added beads to it to give a different effect and different colours as well. And on this one I've just done a button closure, but you can obviously do whatever you want. You could use ribbon ends if you want to in place. But this is the bracelet, so if you want to learn how to make this, then keep watching. And so to make this bracelet, these are the things that we'll need. Now first off, here I have my cord, and this is a 1mm satin cord, and I've just chosen to work with a black colour. You can also choose whatever you want. And then as for the beads, here I have these two beads, and these are going to be like the main embellishment on the bracelet. These are both the same kind of beads and the same size, the metal spacer beads. One is a silver colour and one is a rose gold colour, and you can also choose whatever you want. I've just chosen two different colours just to give it a bit of a different effect. And also, what you just want to make sure with all your beads, including these ones as well, is that the holes are large enough for your cord to go through. And then the other beads that I have up here are the ones that are going to be running along the outside of the bracelet, and these are 6mm round stardust beads, again just a silver colour. And then the final thing here that I'm going to use as well is just a shank button, so it looks like this. It's just got a Celtic design at the front. You can use whatever button you want to, or you can even use something like a large bead as well. That's completely up to you. I'm just going to use this. So then let's get all the materials together that we need, and then let's get started. So we need to cut a cord first, and the length that we need two lengths here. One of them is 1 meter long, so that's this, and then the other one here is 2 meters long. So these are the two lengths of cord that we need. So what we want to do first is we want to get a long piece of cord out. So this is a 2 meter length, and then I'm just working on my macrame board here. It has these slots. You can work on anything that you find comfortable. And then what I'm going to do is put the ends together of my cord, and then here where I have my finger, that's roughly the middle of it. So this is just for reference. It's not a big deal just yet because we can adjust it. And then what I'm going to do is take my macrame board and attach this just for now, so we can start off our work. And what we're going to start off making is actually the loop part for the clasp basically. And then just where I have my fingers here, still roughly the middle. It's no big deal, like I said, it's just a rough guideline for now. And attach this, and now this is on my board, and then I want to get my short length, so the one that's 1 meter. Do the same thing, put the ends together, so I'll find roughly the middle here. And then what we want to do is keep hold of that and attach this to the one on the board, the holding cord, with the lark's head knot. So what I'm going to do is put this loop from the right side underneath, and then take the loop and pull the ends back through. So you have a bit like a pretzel shape like this. And then I'm going to bring it over to the side and then tighten it up. And then what you'll find is on your lark's head knot is one side, the other one here, is kind of just, there's nothing there other than just your cords coming out, which is usually the side that I prefer to use. But in this case I'm just going to have the one where you have a bit of cord and a bit of a loop coming across the others, facing upward. But that's completely up to you, it's just personal preference. And if you're a bit unsure about basic macrame knots, I do have a video that shows how to do some basic knots that might be helpful. So I'm going to put a link to that in the description box so you can have a look if you need to. But then what I'm going to do is we need to make some more knots here to create that loop part. Now the cords coming out from your lark's head knot here are naturally coming each their own side here, so just stick to that. So I'm just going to continue working with the bottom one. So we're building on this side of the knot for now. So I'm bringing it over the holding cord, back underneath like that, and then up through the loop. And then when you pull it a bit tighter, you get something that looks like a 6, like this. Making sure that you pull it, it's coming back through itself like this, because that's what's going to create the knot. And then pull that tight. And now we do the same thing but the opposite way. So last time we went over, now we need to go under, pull through, back around, and again make sure you go through the loop like that. So you get your 6 again, so it looks the same, but we're just going around the holding cord the opposite direction. And then tighten that, and there you then have a vertical lark's head knot, and it looks the same as the one that you just made before. So this is what you want to do now for a little bit. Make your vertical lark's head knot to create a bit of a length of macrame here, and that's going to then form the loop part of the bracelet. So just keep doing this, and you might want to do a bit on this side and then work up and do a few on the top here, just so these two lengths will eventually still be roughly the same, so you use both of them. So just do this for a little bit, and then until you can test out as you go, because you need obviously this length to be the size that you need your loop to be depending on what button or what bead you're using. So you can test that as you go. So now I've made a length of my knots here. So what I'm going to do is just take it off of the board, because then I just want to test it to see if it's long enough or whether I need to add or some more knots or take some away. So I then take it off like this, and then what I like to do is kind of bend it so, or shape it so the loops where you have your knots, so the top part of your knots are coming around the top, so your working cords are going to be sticking out to the sides, and your holding cord is just coming straight down, so like this. So I just shape it into the loop shape, and then I'll get my button and then put it through to test it. And this button particularly is about 2.3 centimeters, and I can tell that I'll need just about one more knot or so. So you can also just do this by hand instead of placing it back in when it's only a couple of knots that you're doing. This is what I mean by just keep checking it, see if your loop is the right size for what you need. Put it back and see if that one knot was enough, like that. And I can tell just one more and then it should be fine. Just one more knot here. And then the loop will be just the right size for my button, or whatever you're using. If you're using a button or a large bead or something, you just want to do the exact same thing, checking. So like that. And now I know that this is large enough, but also not too large. You want to make sure that your loop is neither too small or too big. So I'm going to shape it like this, and then what we need to do is just secure the two ends here. So what I'm going to do is have the two holding cords, that's the long ones we have left, just have them coming straight down, and then I'm just going to hold them together with my fingers for now. And then the two short ones that we were using to create this loop, we need to use them also just to bring these two things together, the two sides. So I'll put one over. I just start with my left one, doesn't matter which one you start with, because we need to make a square knot now. And then the other one comes over that, goes underneath everything in the middle, behind the back here, and then you want to pull it up through the loop. And you can fasten it back into something if you need to. But because it's just one knot we're doing, you can also just do it by hand. So you have your half of your square knot here coming around your two holding cords. Then you want to tighten that, and it tightens all the way up to the very bottom of your loop like this. To finish off the square knot, I'm going to start with the other side, go over, and then bring this one over, back around the back and up through the loop like that, and then tighten that as well. And now this is our loop. So then what we need to do is just get in position, because I'm just going to fasten it back in so we can continue working. I'm just going to put the loop here just gently around one of the slots. Doesn't have to go all the way in. So like that. You can also use pins or something like that. And then what we need to do is start with the actual bracelet. So now that I have it fastened to my board again, what we have is the loop at the top, and then the two cords that come into each their own side. Those are the short ones. In the middle we have the two that were the holding cords, and those are the long cords left now. So this is the situation we're in. So what we need to do now is just start off the bracelet by making a few knots, and you can either put your card into your slots, so just hold it in your hands as you work with it. That's completely up to you how you feel comfortable working with it. But you'll see the two cards in the middle here are kind of coming out to each their own side, so just stick to that for now. And then I'm just going to take the short one on the outside, is just going to be the holding card now. So the one from the middle, the long one, to the left side, I'm working with that first. We need to make another vertical lark's head knot. So I go over with that, like this, back around and through the loop. So it looks like that. And then we want to tighten that all the way to the top. I go underneath, back around and through the loop. So the exact same knot that we created the actual loop with, and tighten that like so. And then we want to do the same thing with the other side. So again, the one furthest out, so the short one, that's the holding cord. The one in the middle, the long one, goes over, back around and through the loop. So you get your 6. On this side you get your normal 6, on the other side you get your reverse 6. Bring it up, underneath, around and through the loop. Like that. And tighten it. So now we have one vertical lark's head knot on each side here, and that's going to be the very beginning because we need a bit of spacing here in between to have space for our beads. So what I'm just going to do is take the two ones that we just used as the holding cord, so the short ones all the way to the side, and bring them down a little bit and then put them into some slots here in the bottom. And it's just to kind of secure them in place and give me that space in between here to work with. Now one tip that I just want to give as well, if you find that the holes in your beads are just large enough for your cord to go onto, and if your cord maybe frays a little bit at the end, one thing to help with that is use something like a lighter here. And you can do this if it's something like satin cord, a nylon cord of some sort. It has to be kind of an artificial cord like that, so not cotton cord, you can't really do it. But then I'm going to take my lighter and then on the end of all my cords, just quickly run my lighter over the end and then roll it between my fingers. So just like that. You always want to be careful doing this because it gets hot. We are working with fire there. But if you do it quickly and gently, then it will work. And then you've ended up with a bit of more of a point and a thinner end of the cord, and it doesn't fray, which is probably the most important part. And you have a bit like a needle there at the end, so that really helps thread on your beads. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my 6mm beads out, and these are just the stardust rounds that I have. And I'm going to put these on the two short sides here, so one on each side, the two short cords that I have. These are kind of work as a bit of spacing on the sides. So put one on each side, and that's where, having done that to the end of the cords, it really helps threading on beads to especially something like satin cord, especially if the holes are only just large enough for your cord to go through. So like that, and put your cords back in, and then we need to work on the middle two here. So once I have the two beads on the side here, what I'm going to do is thread my beads onto the two middle ones, and then these are the 3mm beads that I'm using. So the silver ones, and then the rose gold ones. It's just to get a bit of contrast and you get more of a pattern out of it. So I'm using these two, and then on one side, so on the right side, the left side, or in this case, I've threaded on 4 of my silver coloured ones and just place them all the way down. And then on the right side, I put on 4 of my rose gold ones and push them all the way down. So they sit like this now. So what we need to do is the cord that's coming from the left side here, so that's with the silver on, I'm going to bring that over to the right side, and then the cord that's with the rose gold coming from the right side here, or this is just how I've chosen to put them on, I'm going to bring that to the opposite side. And then the one from the right side I'm always going to have come underneath the other one, so the one from the left side goes over. So you get a bit of a cross like this with your beads, and it'll become more obvious the pattern once we get further down. But then what I'm going to do, we need to fasten these in place. So make sure the beads are completely pushed up, and then we need to yet again use the vertical lark's head knot. I'm going to take one side at a time, and then I go over. So the one coming from the right side with my rose gold, over to the left side, go over, back underneath, that holding cord on the left side and then back through the loop. So on this side you get your reverse 6 like that, and then bring it all the way up and tighten it, and then now we need to go underneath, around and back through the loop. So again your reverse 6 but just looping the other way around your holding cord, and then tighten that, making sure that you don't get any of your beads trapped there. They need to stay in the middle side, in the middle of your 2 cords here. So that's the one side. The other side we do the same thing. So we go over, back underneath and through the loop. So this is where you get your normal 6. Tighten that all the way up underneath the bead on the side. Go under, around and back through the loop. You reverse 6 but looping the other way around, and tighten that like that. So that is the very first part. So again we now have the 2 working cords here coming in towards the middle. So now what we need to do now is again put another 2 beads, one on each side of the 6mm ones. So again just release it as I go. Add 1 to the left side, put your cord back in, and 1 to the right side, push them all the way up and put your cord back in. So like that, and now these will be the spacing for the next section. So again we now need to add a bead to the 2 center ones, so the working cords that we're then going to cross over. So in this case what I've done is I'm going to continue adding the same colour to the same length of cord. So that means the last one here was one crossing over, that's now coming from the right side, and that had the silver on, so I'm going to add silver to this one again. So that's what you just remember, keep adding the same colours to the same cord, and that's, you're going to give this effect that I'm going to get on my bracelet. But in this case I've added 5 beads instead of 4, only because I want just a little bit bigger spacing in between my 2 sides, and it's just the beginning was just to kind of get it started where there was a bit less space there. So I'm adding 5 from now on throughout the rest of the bracelet. So that's the silver, and then the cord where that had the rose gold on before, I also add the rose gold on again, and again I'm putting 5 on there. And then we'll cross them over, remembering the left one always goes over and the right one comes under. And then we want to do the vertical lark's head knot on the other side of this bead on the side, up, back under and through the loop. The exact same knot as the other times, and then under, around and through the loop, and then tighten it. Make sure you don't get your bead trapped, nice and tight like that. Push it all the way up against the bead, because that's where the beads on the side act like the spacers, to give the whole piece a bit more space. And the same on the other side, coming from the left, going over to the right, around, back through the loop, that one over first, and then we need to go underneath, around and back through the loop. Like that. So that is now the next section. So you can see every other one is going to be silver that goes on top, and every other one is going to be rose gold that goes on top, and the same with underneath, and you're going to get this crisscross pattern throughout the whole thing. So this is just basically what I'm going to keep doing. Now add your 6mm beads to the side again, and then cross over again with your 4 or 3mm beads, sorry. And then you just want to continue doing this until you reach the length that you need it to be. So I've now reached the length that I want my bracelet to be, and then what I'm just going to do, I've got one left to do. So I've added the side beads here, on both sides, push them up like normal, and then this last one I want to do just like I did the first one. If you remember the very first one we added 4 beads, whereas the rest here throughout we've added 5. So what I'm going to do again is add the 4 beads, because to kind of taper it inwards a little bit again so we can finish it off. So I add 4 to each side in the same pattern, like that, because then that's going to pull it in a little bit when we make our knots. And then we just want to do the same knots to that vertical lark's head knot. So I've now done both of my knots on both sides there, so we now have the working cords still again towards the middle of the piece. So what we need to do now is basically finish it off. So I'm just going to take my holding cords here off the board, And then to collect all the cords at the end here, to then be able to put on the button, we just need to do a regular square knot. And what I'm going to do is use the 2 holding cords here from the side to do my square knot around the 2 middle cords, the ones that were the working cords. So I just do a regular square knot around both of them. So like this, and then all the way up to the bottom of your last 2 vertical lark's head knots there. And as you can see, it tapers inwards again, which is why I just put the 4 beads instead of 5 on the very first and the last one. It just gives it a nicer transition. And the second half of the square knot, so that's now nice and secure. And then if you feel it's a little bit, you can always pull a little bit loose. You can always pull your holding cords there and push up the knot a little bit just to make it nice and tight so you have no gaps in there. And then we've now made the main part of the bracelet. So what we need to do now is just finish it off with a button. And now what I'm just going to do is just do one more square knot here, just to give a bit more space between the end of the bracelet and the button. So one more square knot, so you have 2 here at the end of the bracelet. You can also do a few more if you want to, just like that. And then what I'm going to do is add the button to my bracelet. So I take my button here, and this is a shank button, and it's got a nice decent sized hole, so I know I can get at least 2 of my cords through here. And what I'm going to do is take the 2 holding cords that we were just making knots around and put them through the button, both in the same direction, just like that, and then push it all the way up, and just make sure that the top of your button points the way that you want to be the upside of your bracelet. And then you can always just flip it to the back if you want to, and then do the rest of your square knots. So now I need to kind of cage this in. It's almost like as if it was a bead, but it's just a button instead. And you just want to make another square knot or 2 to cage that button in place so it stays nice and securely, like that. And the other half of it, just like that. And then you can do one more if you feel the need to, or you can leave it here. And then what I'm just going to do is kind of glue these ends off so we can then cut off all the excess cord. And for this I'm going to use my GS Hypo Cement because it dries clear, so that's nice in the sense you can't see it when it dries then. And also it's nice and strong, but mostly because it has this fine nozzle tip to it, so you can really get the glue just right where you want it to go. So I'm going to get a bit out, and then I'm just going to put my glue around the last knot here. So you want to go into the well, because when you make square knots you kind of create a well in the knot. So you want to put your glue there, because that's going to then secure all the cords together. But then also just go around the edges and where your cords are coming out. And then if you can get in there, just go to the other side as well of the knot and put a bit of glue in there as well, because that's just going to give it extra security. So once you put enough glue, you want to let it dry for a bit, and then we can cut off the excess. So now let my glue dry for a bit, and then what I'm going to do is take my scissor and then just go in and cut off the excess cord here. You just want to do one at a time and try and get as close to your piece as possible, but obviously be careful not to cut into your knot or anything, because you want it to stay intact. So those 2, and then also the end here, both of them. Just like that, and then there you have a nice and neat finished end, and it's hidden underneath the button, but even so it's quite neat anyway. And then you have basically a finished bracelet here. So take it around and use the loop for the button, and this is your finished bracelet. So this is just how I chose to finish this one off. It's quite a simple closure and easy, and you don't need much to do that, just a button or a bead or something. You can also choose a different way, Like, I also used to use ribbon ends. I like to use ribbon ends as well. So you could use something like this. These ones are then 2cm ones, 20mm, so they'll be a perfect size for this bracelet. You can quite easily finish the ends off like that if you want to do that. That's completely up to you, and then just use whatever findings you want. But otherwise, and this is your finished bracelet, however you choose to finish it off. Now as for the sizing, this particular bracelet is about 7.5 inches in the size, and what you want to do to measure it, if you make the loop and the button closure, to measure the length, you want to measure from the very top of the loop here, and then just finish measuring just before the button here, because that's going to be roughly the length then. Because when you think about it, you close it up, the button's going to go inside the loop, and then take out some of the length if you measured it completely full length. That's why you don't want to measure the button with it, because then otherwise this is the finished bracelet. And obviously if you want to make it much longer, you just need to use some longer lengths of cord to begin with. But otherwise this is how you make it. So I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, show you this technique, and thank you very much for watching. Hello everyone, today I want to show you how to make these macrame bracelets, and these are the beaded version of my intertwining herringbone macrame bracelet that I did last year, and they look like this. So I've just made these two examples, so it's the exact same technique as you can see, but because of the different just cord that I've used here, you get two very different looks, and even the beads are the same ones as well. So I've used a white satin cord and then a black one, because I thought that would be a nice neutral background colour for the silver